Hi guys, hope that you're keeping well. It's really hard to believe that we have nearly been in lockdown for nearly a month. Nearly 4 weeks have passed that we have had to stay at home, and as I've been thinking about that, I'm sure you've realised as well that lots has changed in our lives over the last month. Lots and lots and lots of different things have changed. We don't have the same lives, and we don't get to enjoy all the things that we normally do. Our lives have changed a lot. You guys aren't going to school, and we can't go to church that we would normally do on a Sunday. Just can't really pop out and do whatever we want anymore. One big thing is that we have to stay at home. That's a big change. We're always at home apart from our one form of daily exercise a day. Apart from that, we have to stay at home. Hygiene, there's a big change with that. We have to wash our hands lots and lots and lots, especially if we have been out and about. Maybe you've been wearing gloves and different things, and maybe you've been out and you've seen people have been wearing masks as well. We have to think about that. Been a big change. Really every part of our lives have changed over the last month or so. Very little seems to have remained the same because of the coronavirus. I want to speak to you guys just for a few moments today about change. And we've been considering all the change that has happened in our lives because of the coronavirus. But sometimes change can be good. Sometimes change is important, and it has to happen in our lives to make our lives better and to make good decisions. We need to change, and we maybe need to stop doing something and change to go a different way that will help and improve our lives. But right now, I would guess that it doesn't feel good at all. The change that we're experiencing doesn't feel great, and we don't like it. And I don't like it either. But what are we going to do? Are we going to shrug our shoulders and, just get a little frustrated and, get a bit more annoyed because we can't go outside all the time, we can't do the things that we normally do, we can't see our friends, always having to wash our hands a billion times a day? What are we going to do? How are we to think in spite of all of this change that's going on around us? Well, let me tell you guys a story. And it's a story about a group of Christians that lived many years ago. And they were going through a lot of change. Now, it's not similar to the change we're going through, but they were going through a lot of change in their lives. They had been part of an old religion, and they had changed and had started to follow Jesus. They had become Christians. That was a really big change. But from that, lots and lots of things happened to them that probably weren't that great. Different changes that had taken place in their lives. Because they had started to follow Jesus, they had begun to be mistreated by other people. They had lived very easy, comfortable, nice lives, but because they followed Jesus, they actually were facing oppression, and people were abusing them and mistreating them. That was a big change. And because of that mistreatment, they started to question, was it worth following Jesus anyway? With all of this change that was going on around their lives, all this the difference of circumstances and the change and the situations that were going up and down, was it worth following Jesus at all? Now, I wonder if you had the opportunity or the chance to have written to those Christians many years ago, what would you have said to them? What would be the one thing you would want to tell them? The one thing that you would like to teach them or to encourage them to keep going, to keep following Jesus? What would be the one thing that you would want to write to them? Well, someone, we don't know exactly who, we don't know who the author is, writes them a letter which contains some incredible truths, really encouraging stuff to make sure that they keep going in following Jesus. But one of the things that this author wants to remind these Christians is this. And it's a very simple thing. In spite of all the change that has went on in their lives, he tells them this, that Jesus does not change. And it's really important because he tells it right at the very start of the letter and at the very end of the letter. I'm talking about the New Testament letter to the Hebrews, which we find right at the very end of our Bibles. And he says that right at the start of Hebrews chapter 1, as he starts to explain it, how wonderful and supreme and beautiful and great and superior Jesus is. And he says in Hebrews chapter 1 and verse 12, talking about Jesus, he says, "But you are the same, and your years will have no end." He says Jesus is eternal. Jesus is the same. He does not change. And that is something that is so important. That we don't get Jesus sort of changing and chopping and one day he's different, the next day something else. So Jesus is always the same. And right at the very end of Hebrews chapter 13, we read these they're very famous words that this author writes. And as he's coming to a close and he's writing this letter and he's about to put the pen down, he says this: Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Let me say that again. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Boys and girls, that is incredible truth. That is something for us to hold on to during these days as our lives are changing. And for those guys many years ago, that was really important. That was something that would encourage them no ends. You know, as I've already made the point, and as you know and are experiencing, our lives have changed a lot. But as we look at our lives, even outside of what's going on with the coronavirus and this pandemic, once we look and reflect upon our lives, we have to admit that we change a lot as well as people. You know, some days we're in good mood and some days we're in a bad mood. Some days we want to be really helpful and we want to, get stuck in and do our schoolwork, do our chores, and the next day, we couldn't be bothered. We don't want to do it. We change. We change. Our personalities change throughout the day. You wake up, you're feeling great. By the end of the day, you feel rubbish. But what we need to remember, and this is the truth that this author tells in the letter to the Hebrews, is that Jesus is not like us. He's not just like a better and a bigger version of us. Jesus is not like that at all, because Jesus is God. And because Jesus is God, that means that he does not change. That Jesus is always the same. And that is good news for us because Jesus is perfect. And we look at Jesus' life and we know that he's perfect. So he is perfect all the time. He doesn't drop. He doesn't have like a bad day and then sort of picks it up another day or another week. No, Jesus is the same today and tomorrow and forever. He is God. And that is one of the many reasons why we need to trust him, especially in these days. So boys and girls, let's remember that today. Let's remember that this week. And in fact, let's remember about that for the rest of our lives. That Jesus Christ, God, and our Saviour who loves us, who is perfect, is the same yesterday and today and forever. I'll see you next week.